hit record here. Yep. All right, and so it's just a couple of us today. We're going to be talking about section B of that CVC OEI rubric, and so we'll keep this kind of informal since it is a small group, and hopefully we get to answer all the questions you have and more as we go along. And Craig, you guys know chat if we need to you know, talk to one another, we'll go ahead and do chat. I have your names down, so I don't need it for attendance. For a small group, I can handle that. But that's what I usually use that for. So section B is on interaction. So this is really broken up into two parts. So we talk about instructor to student. So there's a lot of work we have to do as instructors to make sure that we're reaching out to our students and we're watching for their needs as they go along in the course. And then we have to provide lots of opportunities for students to be working and talking with one another as they learn, which is obviously, oh, here we go, we have more people coming. Hello, welcome, we're just getting started. We're talking about section B of our rubric and the two different parts. First part on instructor-student interaction, and then we talk about student-to-student interaction. And we'll be giving you a lot of ideas and examples, hopefully today, to help you in your courses. We're going to look at a couple sample courses that were given to us by the CVC. So you can, we'll hunt around for these elements in those classes and see where they're at. And we'll point out in our course, we provide a course template. If you're interested, you can download that in your course. And we'll show you where some of these elements are present in that as well. And then the second part of this, you'll get to ask questions, but we're going to be kind of informal, so you can ask questions as we go along. We have plenty of time. There's only 6 standards in section B, so it doesn't take us very long to get through all these. And then, so this is, we did this one, if you were at our workshop on Tuesday, I did this before, but if you have looked at the CVC rubric and you've kind of thought about your course, if you would, at the top of your screen, you can go to view options and then select annotate. And then you can click on a stamp and you can just tell us where on this line you kind of feel like you are. So I'm just going to take a stamp here. And, you know, if you feel like you're really aligned, you'll say, I'm a 10. If you feel like, oh, I haven't even looked at that thing, I'm probably down here. Go ahead and indicate on that line if you would try for me. If I get an idea, great, of kind of where you might be on this continuum. Again,
where do I look?
Oh, I said section A. It's actually section B. So on the top of your screen.
Oh, I can see it now.
Do you see view options?
Yes.
And then annotate. And then you're going to select a stamp. I just realized my slide says section A. We're talking about section B. Where do you think you are with your alignment of section B? Great, okay. Okay, so somewhere probably in the middle we're talking about, we had another stamp that just disappeared. There you go. All right, great. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually switch gears. Let me get out of PowerPoint for a second. All right, there we go. The CVC rubric. We're going to be toggling back and forth between our rubric and the tabs on my screen so we can look at these different courses. And I will continue to adjust where you guys are on my screen so I can see everything. You know what? I see a little star here. I have to clear annotations and clear all drawings. There we go. So this is the first set of our standards. This is where we're talking about instructors reaching out to students and ensuring engagement. Right? So in courses, for B1, we're saying you have to have some kind of pre-course contact. And when we have our class on teaching online, we talk about sending out that welcome letter before the course begins. And so the way you can do this is over email. To get to your students, and this is something I can't demonstrate, but you can do this through WebAdvisor, and if any of you have done it, you can, you know, describe to us what that is, but we just go into WebAdvisor, you look up your course roster, and you can email the roster from there. I'm told you can also do this now from WCC self-service, which I haven't done myself. I've only ever done it through WebAdvisor. But that's where you can send them out a letter to begin with. And then once you've done that, you also want to repost that letter in the course itself, maybe as an announcement, because students may add the course later on. And if they didn't get that original announcement, they don't have some important information. So what we want to do is look at a course letter, and we'll kind of see what's in that welcome letter. Again, if you've taken our class, you've probably already done one. So this is one of the OEI, CVC OEI examples. It's kind of an oldish one. The two that I'm going to show you today are available on a handout that I will put in the chat in a little bit. But I'll give you the links to these courses if you want to take a look at them. They're a little bit old. I think they're probably some of the first couple of courses that were, normed to this rubric. But they're still, they're oldies but goodies. So in a course like this, normally we would see in the announcements tab, I would expect to see the welcome letter in the course itself after it's been emailed out. Sometimes we see it again in like an orientation module at the beginning. Oh, here comes Mary. Welcome, Mary. In our course template, let me just switch over. So this is a class. We're not seeing it in here because we don't have announcements enabled. This is just a copy of a course. But what I would do is look at our template. And you see on the template on the front page, we actually have announcements enabled. So you can see the last announcement on the top of the page. Let's go in there. And you can see we have a sample course welcome letter posted. So this is an instructor who's already sent out the letter to everybody. And then this letter is just telling you, what you would put typically in a letter. And the key here with these pre-course contact is you want to make sure that students know how to get into Canvas, right? So there's two different ways. You can send them to login.yccd.edu. You can also send them to, I'll type it up in here, yccd.instructure. Our main page where they would just go sign in to Canvas. Come on now, from here. Not wanting to take me there. I'm a little slow today. I'm already logged in, so it's taking me right into Canvas, but typically it'll take you into a sign-in page there. So that's key, because students who've never taken an online class before, that may seem really obvious to us, but if you've never taken an online class before or at this college, you wouldn't know where to log in. You might also want to tell them that they're going to use that WebAdvisor ID and password that they set up, when they registered. And really right now, it's so critical to let students know how you're meeting, right? As you know, for the semester, there's some confusion for students. Are there going to be synchronous sessions? Are there going, is everything going to be asynchronous? So even if it's obvious to you, you think it's obvious even from the schedule, I would spell it out again. So as we're thinking about spring, again, I would say, there will be some classes that have perhaps some face-to-face components. If there's face-to-face component, make sure you're telling them the dates or the regularly scheduled times when you will be on campus and where you'll be. So just to really help students understand where they need to be to get started, how to get going. And then we usually give them some kind of a resource to help them in general with online learning. Most of you are familiar, we do have an orientation, which we are working to make much better for next year, but we do have an orientation, a link that you can share with your students. And that link is also in our template in, let's see, modules, in our orientation module. We have a link to it. And so we're going to just under our student support resources page. Here's our orientation online learning. If you click on that, that'll take you to the orientation, and you can copy that link and send it to your students as well. So those are some good things you can start your students off with at the beginning. And if you're doing that, you are set for, my screen is being goofy today. Why? stop sharing for a moment. It doesn't want me to pop out of. So if you're doing that, then you can check off B1 as aligned. So I mentioned our first workshop, we're really focusing on being aligned. To be exemplary is a wonderful thing, but actually an aligned course is a fantastic course. So that's what we're aiming for. And then over time, you can add exemplary elements. Over time, you might give students some more resources to get started well in your class. I wouldn't overwhelm students at the beginning. A succinct letter that answers their basic questions is not overwhelming. If there's a specific textbook that you want them to get ahead of time, you might want to mention that. But I've seen some instructors really put a lot into these letters, and you don't want it to be as long as your syllabus, right? You just want it to be a nice, friendly greeting that gets students situated. So that's B1. Are there any questions about that pre-course contact or any issues you've had with pre-course contact with students?
No.
No. Okay, great. Lovely. So the second one is regular and effective contact. And all of this is really part of regular and effective contact. If you think, the Department of Education requires that we have, they call it substantive interaction. That's at the federal level. At the state level, the Department of Education requires regular and effective contact. This particular criteria, they've labeled this, and so I would say don't confuse the big concept with B2. All of this kind of contributes to regular and effective contact. But in B2, we're talking about instructor-initiated contact, and this is actually something that came up for us at accreditation, where we saw that our instructors do an excellent job of responding to students. So students, you might send you a message, and less than 24 hours consistently, and sometimes within hours, our instructors respond to students, right? But what they weren't seeing a lot of were instructors reaching out proactively to students. So we've done some training around that, and now we're really seeing it as we work through courses. We're seeing instructors being really proactive. Sometimes I'll send you prompts to maybe take a look at your analytics in the course, who needs to be contacted and so forth. And so in the alignments of the course design includes regular instructor initiated contact using, so CMS, we're talking about Canvas, communication tools, and a clear explanation for students of when and how communication will happen. So we expect to see this second part, the where and how communication will happen in several parts of the course. So we're going to look for it. If we go into one of our sample classes, I would look for this in the syllabus. So I'm going to expect to see maybe in the communication policy. Here's a course syllabus for this class. And so he has this built out as actually a module in his course. I'm going to look for some kind of, here we go, communicating with the professor. But what I want to see is how the professor is going to be talking to the students and reaching out to them. So I see that, okay, email he'll be using, he has an Ask the Professor forum, great. And then he even tells students the time, this is the when you can expect to hear back from this instructor. He gives a phone number. You don't have to give out your phone number. If you have an office number, that's fine. Or sometimes people create a Google number that, they can answer when they would like. We have the office hours. But as a student, I want to know, like, how is this instructor going to be regularly reaching out to me? And so we see it in his syllabus. I would expect, it looks like the syllabus is his orientation. So he's got some course resources, how to navigate the course. And here's his orientation. I would expect to maybe see contact information again in an orientation. So both in the syllabus and probably somewhere in this welcoming video, he may be telling me how he's going to be reaching out to me in this class. Okay, here we go again, more about communicating with the professor. So this is one element that we actually want to see repeated in the class. The reason being, it's really important to understand how to reach your professor. And all of us think differently. When we come into a class, I might expect to see this information in one place, and you might expect to see it in another. So this is one that I would repeat in at least the syllabus and maybe your orientation module. And, you know, maybe somewhere in the middle of the course where students tend to get lost, remind them, right, how they can get a hold of you, or link to one of these pages that will remind them how to get a hold of you. Okay. As an instructor for this one, I would have a plan of how I'm going to, on a weekly basis, be reaching out to students. And sometimes we talk about the weekly rhythm of contact. We have an instructor-initiated contact training in the Faculty and Staff Development Center if you're interested. And we talk about it too in the online teaching course. You know, on a weekly basis, I might make sure that I have a weekly announcement, that I am, you know, checking in on the discussion at least twice that week, that I am giving feedback on the assignments. And so that's just, that alone is about 4 or 5 different, you know, times that I am reaching out to students. Once every 2 or 3 weeks, I might check analytics to see who's really, you know, how much time are people spending. And I can actually demonstrate that one in our template. I can't do it in those sample courses. But you see in the template, I've enabled a thing called New Analytics over here. And if you're interested in that, you just go over to the settings in your course. And then you're going to go over to the navigation tab. And you would find, if you don't have it enabled, it's going to be in this bottom group, and you would find New Analytics, click on it. And I'll just show you with chat what you do. You click on it and you drop it to the top. Okay, and I already have New Analytics enabled. And then you click Save. On this page, this navigation page, whatever's at the top of the page is enabled or turned on, and will show in your navigation menu, and whatever you have down here is not, okay? It's not available. Now, and New Analytics students can access. This is something you see, but students cannot. And I don't have any students in this course. This is a template. I have a few people in here as instructors. Maybe it'll show us something, but I'm just going to click on it so you have an idea. You can come in here and actually kind of gives you a chart of all your students, their sort of activity. And then I could search for a particular student, which I don't. You would type in the student's name. And what it would do is give you a chart for that student. You could look at their weekly online activity. You can also get to students through the student tab, and it would list all the students in the course, their grade, the last time they participated, their last page view, their total page views. And I'm not sure what goes totally into the participations, total participations for a student within this course. So probably every time they've uploaded or responded to something in the course, this gets counted in participations. It's just kind of an interesting way to see if you're looking at all students at once, it's easy to find, say, the zeros or the very low numbers. And those would be students that you can actually message right from here as well. So this is a nice tool, again, to comply with B2, to be, you know, proactively reaching out. This is a good one to enable in your class. So B2 is actually kind of a lot. Are there questions about reaching out proactively to students? That's probably like one we could do like an hour on just by itself.
Betsy, I was looking at mine and I don't see the icon that you click.
To turn it on?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you went to settings,
Uh-huh.
I'll go back through with you. And then on the navigation tab at the top.
Okay.
Okay. And then do you see it in there, like in the bottom group at all?
Let me see. Okay, navigation. Yeah. So I'm just going to put it up.
Yeah, so click on it, drag it to the top.
To hit save, because that was my problem. I forgot several times to hit save, and it didn't.
I've done it many, many times myself, and then I can't figure out what the heck, I thought it was there. Yeah, save is critical. Okay, you can see it now? Okay, yeah. Great. So you can have some fun with that one and kind of play around with it. I mean, there's also people, right? And And people, you know, you see who's assigned, who's in the course. You see their last activity. So you can, this is a great way week 1 to see who's checked in. If you have a deadline, which you should have, or, you know, if you haven't checked in by this date, you could be dropped. You can check here. This is a great place to do that. Total activity is misleading. Do you see it says 115 hours? Now it's totally possible. This is our template. I'm in here all the time, probably for 2 years, so 3 years. Totally possible I've spent 115 hours in here. I probably just left it up one day and went and did other things, and it just kept running for a while, right? So this is misleading, as you might have just left the computer on for a long time with this tab open. But it gives you an idea, right? Versus a student who spent 30 minutes, right? And it usually corresponds to grades. You know, there's some correspondence there. So that's helpful, but not, you know, it can be a little misleading. You could have a student in there, you know, this student who spent 7 hours might be doing just as well as I am because I just left my computer on, you know. I want to show you here, though, the 3 dots up here. Whenever there's 3 dots, they call these option menus. If you click on that, it says view student interactions report. Okay, if you just click that, what it will do, it will generate. So this, I just have a test student. You'll see all your students, you know, drop into this, and you know, it tells you the current grade in the class, the last time you interacted with the student. Okay, so this is a great thing to do, maybe nowish, or you know, maybe another week or 2. A student you have never had, what feeds into here are comments from grading, individual messages you might have sent them, or, you know, when you use the grade book and you say message students who, all those things contribute to this. So in terms of this B2 element of being proactive, this is a great place to say, who haven't I had individual contact with yet, right? Because we may send out all these mass things like announcements and so forth, but we might be missing certain individuals. So even if it's just to reach out and say, hey, just want to see how you're doing in the class, you can just come over right here to that message, the student tool. And right from there, it's going to open up your box and you can send them a message and just say something quick and nice, you know, just to check in with them. And then you also have a record in Canvas. When accreditation comes in, they can see, wow, you reached out to all your students. So it's helpful. Again, not totally, yes, thank you. Sorry, my 3-year-old is home with us. So we may be interrupted a few times. You know, none of these things are totally foolproof, but some other ways to kind of cast the net and see, you know, if you're capturing everybody in the class. All right, any other questions about B2? All right, so we'll move on. We'll talk about student-initiated contact. So the other one we just did was instructors reaching out to students proactively. In B3, we're saying, are there ways in your course that are built in so that students are reaching out, are able to reach out to you? And the first part of this, I think that's important, is that you're encouraging them to do that. That encouragement can come in, you know, wherever you have your policies, how you write the communication policy, you know, say, I encourage you to reach out to me, right? Whenever you have an issue. In your announcements that you're sending out every once in a while, you know, if you're introducing letting them know, you know, another week started, if you have any questions, I encourage you to come to my virtual office hours or to drop in on the course question and answer board. That's actually something I want to check in this course that we're looking at. I would guess that this instructor has a question and answer kind of a place for students. He may not, but that is a typical one we see. Let me check this other one. This is a philosophy course. I would expect to see somewhere in here, here we go, while there's discussions, often what instructors will do within the module, they may link to, yeah, this is a problem when we're seeing copies, we can't see their discussion boards. Often what we see is instructors link to a discussion board. So let me go back to our template. Okay, so I'm going to jump here from discussions. What we have in this template is we have a pinned discussion course question and answer board. And so this is a great way to encourage your students If you have questions each week, I think Noelle, you use one of these pretty regularly, is that right?
Yes,
you use
I do.
Q&A.
And I'm wondering, while we're in this section, could you please just tell me the difference between a discussion and a pinned discussion?
Oh, sure. So a discussion, well, they're all discussions, right? All discussions are discussions. Let me go back here and I'll show you how we pin them.
These are words.
Thank you. So all discussions, when you create them, drop into this area where it says discussions. If I think one is particularly important or want students to be able to see readily, and I have enabled discussions so that students can get to it directly, right? Which I don't have set up right now. I might want to pin it. So it doesn't really make sense, honestly, the way this is set up to have this pinned, because I have discussions hidden from students. I still would have to link it in my course so they could see it. But if I wanted to pin, say, the meet and greet, say that I think that's really important, that they can get to it anytime, I just go to that options menu, the 3 dots, and I say pin, and it puts it up at the top of this. Again, doesn't make any sense if I don't have discussions visible to do this, okay? If I want them contributing the question and answer board the way this course is set up, I should plug in that question and answer board. You got it? So the way I'm going to show people, because I know we're all at different levels of using Canvas. I know, Noelle, you're using you've been using Canvas for a long time. Let me just show you. Let's say each week I want to encourage students to contact me on their own if they have questions. I can come into my module. Let's say this is week 1. I'm going to click on the plus sign. I'm just adding an element into my module. And I will find discussions. Okay, and then all my discussions show up down here that I've already built. And I'm going to say, let's put that course Q&A board in there, right? So now that adds to the bottom. And so each week as they're coming through, when they get to the end, they're going to be prompted, hey, if you have any questions, come talk to me. And I can do that each week. I can put that same board in each week, or every 2 weeks, or every once in a while, however you want to do that. But that's a good practice. In our handbook, the WCCDE handbook, it says that like all courses must have a Q&A discussion board, right? Not all do. Some people use different methods of collecting student input, but I would say this is just a surefire way. And then to once in a while remind students that it exists and they can go to it. All right, so that's one way. Another way, so basically what we're trying to do is think of like the water cooler or the lounge or these spaces where, you know, the hallway, spaces where students would typically gather in a face-to-face course to informally maybe talk to you, to kind of, you know, get a hold of you or to talk to one another. So in B3, we're talking about getting a hold of you, and B4, we're talking so that students can talk to each other. Q&A board checks both those boxes. If you have a Q&A board, students can be talking to each other, answering each other's questions. They can also be talking to you. Yeah, well, you know, and some other things that I've seen, I just made some notes, some other things I've seen people do in their courses. You know, I like this practice. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, please email me again. That's something I see instructors either remind their students or put in that policy. I feel like, especially now, sometimes my inbox is so crazy. I feel like I should have this policy with everybody I work with, right? If you haven't heard from me, it might have gotten lost. And then just always having encouraging statements throughout that course to please contact you. And if you have, I would say, the Q&A board, you're constantly reiterating throughout the class, please reach out to me if you have questions. And I can say I've worked with all people attending this session right now. You're all doing a great job in that, encouraging the questions with your students. Okay, so that's a pretty, you know, straightforward one. I think you can check off on your classes, no problem. Whoops, wrong handout. Let me go back. The next one, B4. Now this is similar, but this is so students can interact with each other informally. This is one that's often missing in classes. So, and again, pretty easy. The Q&A board will work. That's one way to do it. So that students have ways, again, of gathering in that hallway kind of talk with each other, you know, before class starts or right afterward. You can do the Q&A board. You can do, Noelle, you're just venturing into the world of chat. You could enable chat.
I have enabled chat.
Okay.
And a student can post in there anytime, but I also make sure I'm there for an hour each day, and I've assigned and you'd have to have 4 tabs, or, you know, I have 5 classes, so you'd have to have all the tabs open at once if you opened it to every class. So every class has their hours. Mondays at 1:30 is, you know, 1A, that 1A, certain 1A, 9573. And I also say I'm available almost anytime by Zoom and by appointment. And if you want to do Zoom, or you can with me, I offer it by appointment. And I've done that with students this semester. So someone said, "Are you available Thursday at 10?" And I said, "Yeah, here's a Zoom for you. Here's a link for you." And we chatted for a little bit. And they can post or leave a question at any time in the chat. And it would send me a message if somebody posted there when I wasn't like on that hour for that class.
Oh, it does. Okay, that's good to know. So what I'm going to show everybody is how to enable chat in the class if they haven't done it. And then, I said in our last workshop, so years ago, I used Blackboard. Oh my gosh, like, how old is Daniela? She's 14, so we're talking like 13 years ago. I used chat and Blackboard. And one of the things that I had issues with, and it's also, I taught in a different place of the country, and my students are different, I'm sure, from here. But the chat became almost a pickup spot, right? Like, people were trying to date over the chat. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm not comfortable with that. So I was thinking about like how it's, if it's working well in your course, use it. I think it's a great tool. I would make sure, and this is like, I had just started teaching this way, and I didn't have all the guidelines that we have now and all the knowledge that I have now. I would definitely let students know what the netiquette is, or what the expectations are of how that chat is used, right? So, having said that, go into settings. If you're interested in enabling chat, let your students know it's there. Here are the expectations of how you would use it and when you would use it. And I think it's great that you are there sometimes, and you get notifications when things are happening. So let students know that too. Back in the day, Blackboard did not notify you when the chat was happening. It was just happening, so it could get away from you. So you would just click on the chat from the bottom box. You would pull it up to your top grouping, and then remember to click save, and that enables that in your class. And I'll just show you, if you haven't seen chat, what that looks like. It's really simple. It's text only, right, Noelle? I mean, you can't do anything fancy with the chat.
Oh, you can put emojis in it. So far, I haven't. If you scroll down, you should be able to see where you can type. Yeah. I haven't had any misuse of that. I think because they have other ways of contacting and, talking to each other. It's been very simple.
That's great. And then you have the option, you can have your messages, you can turn this on so you are alerted when messages come in. So that's what you have going on. Well, yeah, you have your emoji, but not a place where you're attaching documents or anything like that.
No, it's been like, they ask simple questions like, how many pages should the essay be?
Yeah, so that's good. That's good to have that. The other thing is, I was thinking, okay, if you do want to have some control over this, like, I don't want chat open when I'm not there. Now you have the embedded tutor, you've got your regular hours. I think you're pretty well covered. If you have a group that you feel like maybe I need to monitor this a little bit more, you could just say, I'm going to enable chat, twice a week or once a day at these hours, and just turn it on for that time. And then you can go back into settings and hide it again if that's something that you want to do. But again, the idea here is that there have to be spaces where students can just kind of talk to each other, and we don't necessarily intervene. we can use it to, so you're using this in a great way, Noelle, because you have it where you're there sometimes, and then they can use it when you're not. So, so that's just another way to do it. You may or may not want to do it that way. Some people use social media to connect with students, and I would say be careful with that. Make sure it's not your own private accounts that you're interacting with, but it's something set up. So you might create a page for your course, for example, if your students love Facebook, right? You might just create a page for the course, Facebook, if that's how students want to connect. I'm now using Twitter in my in the online teaching course. I just started doing so that students can, we can share stuff over Twitter if we want. It becomes another thing to monitor. So I would say keep your life simple and use the tools that are in Canvas, right? There's enough there. And if your students need something else, they can tell you that in those great anonymous surveys everybody's sending out now, right? All right. So that gives you an idea. Some ways students can interact informally with each other is good for learning. It's actually good for keeping students involved in the class. Participation levels. So we have to make sure that we are explaining to students what our expectations are.
I can't see the title. Can you scroll a little up? Because I can't see the B4 title. No, the other direction.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, so B6 is guidelines for participation. So we want to be telling our students all the different ways that our expectations of their participation in terms of the quantity and quality. So if we say we have discussions, we want to have some guidelines on that, and I'll show you some examples. If we do group projects, we want to tell students how we are looking at their participation in that group project. So if you're enabling groups in your courses, how you're going to be watching them work there, right? If they do peer reviews, what's expected of them if they do peer reviews. And then overall, in the course as a whole, each week I expect this, that, and the other thing. So some places where we expect to see these things, obviously syllabus, the orientation, and then individual assignments, right? We expect to see some mention of these things. And I think I'm gonna go first into, that's not it, the template. And I want to show you in an assignment something that you can have a fully built out rubric, and we encourage that for discussions or assignments. That just it helps students be clear on what your expectations are and helps you to grade much quicker and communicate clearly what, how the outcomes were. But I want to show you, if you're doing a discussion board, it's not just to have that rubric, but also to let them know how to discuss, right? To actually have criteria like this is what a discussion is, right? So I have an example of this in this template that may or may not be helpful, and I gotta find where we're talking about. Course discussions, course Q&A, summary quiz assignment is going to be up here. Let's just look at the meet and greet discussion. This might be where we have this. When we just have a few criteria, this is not the one. I'll look at it in one of these other classes. But basically, we give them a few ways. So in this particular case, we're saying, here's what I expect you to write. But I have and I can share this with you guys later in an email. But here's what I expect to see in a discussion. You're either adding to a student's comment with an additional example, right? You might politely disagree with another student's response, but and adding, showing an example that refutes it from the text, and you might give them the stems. I know, Noelle, you and I like to use stems, to give students an idea of how, like a template, right, of how to say things to politely disagree or add on.
Yeah, those help. And I've also used discussion so I do a weekly announcement, and the announcement links to the module, and it kind of just gives them a heads up, and sometimes a video or a little fun thing. And you can, of course, comment on announcements. And you can, they can see it, you can have it threaded, you can have it until they post, they can't see, or you can see everything. For literature, I just keep it open and say, and you can hit like, they don't have to post to see, they can just, because they might want to say something about, like in British literature, I showed them weird ideas of the early 1800s, rotting pineapples were centerpieces at weddings. All these weird facts, and Parmesan was an ice cream flavor. So they could comment on each other like, yeah, I totally would try that ice cream or something.
Yeah, and that's and that's fun to have, especially a discussion like that. I think early in a course is a fun way to practice whatever the etiquette is that you're setting up in your class. It's also an icebreaker, and there's an academic quality to it as well, right? So that's a great. It's great to have some fun discussions at the beginning of our courses too, because it just gets students excited about it. If I click on the 3 dots, this is where we can see the rubrics that we've built. So definitely, I would say in your discussion boards, remind students to click on those 3 dots to see what the rubric is. So you understand the criteria, right, for the grading. I'm going to look at these sample classes because also in this, I want to see that the instructors are telling students up front about what we expect in the course. So he has a participation and he has some things on feedback. So he's a nice participation policy, setting the expectations up front. So this is a beautiful B6 here. He's, letting them know active participation is typically defined as da, 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 and he tells them what it is, right? Like how he's measuring his active participation. And again, I'm going to send you these links to these courses. So if you want to pull some of this stuff and make it your own, you can definitely do that as well. So he has a page defining it. So if you're afraid you won't hit this one in your review, I mean, you could actually have a page labeled that, right? Now, feedback we talk about in other sections as well in this rubric, but feedback, participation and then how you give them feedback on that go hand in hand. So he also has a page that follows up on that, on all the different types of assignments. Your participation levels page could be set up exactly like this, where you have, the assignments for projects, for quizzes, for discussions. Here's what I'm looking for, and then here's my feedback on those things. So there are different ways you can organize that. And let me go into our other course, into our philosophy course. He puts a lot of these things, I believe, in the syllabus in this class, so it looks a little different. I like how he organizes his syllabus, so you can download it as a complete syllabus, and you can also, he's also got it split out into specific sections, so it makes it easier for students, to find specific policies at that time. So we can see, something like participation might be in the assignment section. It could be, like I said, some of these things are not going to be showing. It could be could even be in the grading section. So I would put it in the syllabus and orientation, and then specific to an assignment. We're making sure we have criteria built in, and hopefully rubrics, if that's applicable to your field. Some fields, rubrics don't work as well as others. So any questions about the B6 standard? Good. So at this point, I want to kind of open it up. This is a quick one. B is a little bit less intense. A is a very long one. B is a lot less intense, but it's really pretty critical. Couple of things I want to show you as you're kind of thinking about your own questions.
I have a question. What is B6? Can you scroll down? I just want to get it in my notes.
Yeah, B6 is participation levels.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. And you can see here we have the rubric or some kind of grading document is exemplary. But I would say, at minimum, I would have for discussion boards, I'm expecting to see these things and just have some bullet points that would be aligned. The exemplary would be to have the rubrics, and the rubrics are really worth your time to build out because it saves you in the long run in terms of grading. So I have a few handouts that I want to show you, or I want to put in the chat here. So one, I have to pull up again because I think I just lost it. There we go. Alignment resources. This is one I shared out on Tuesday's workshop if you were there. This is something that we put together and to give you lots of resources if you're trying to get your course to full alignment so you pass your peer review with flying colors. We have in here a regular and effective contact group. Hopefully this is going to open up. So this is something that as you go through peer review, we're asking that you complete anyway. So if you wanted to, the format is a little funky when I share this link. This blue box is supposed to be on this. When I print it out, it looks right. When I share the link, it doesn't work right, but you get the idea. And basically what we're asking is, okay, these are the different ways in which you might, and this is a long document. These are some different ways you might be, regularly reaching out to students, or this is your plan of contact. This involves both the instructor reaching out to student, student reaching out to instructor, I should say not just both, but all of the above, and students interacting with one another. So all kinds of communication in this course are covered. And the idea is that we would just check boxes with you so that we have this on file as a DE committee of what you're going to be, what you're planning to do. So we can take a look. So in terms of instructor to student, how do you provide students with multiple resources to successfully start the course? And basically what we're asking is, where are these things in your course? Okay, well, I have an orientation, I have a welcome letter, I do a little video at the beginning, so we could just check those off. The idea is that this is a quick thing, but I just want to let you know that that's there. If you wanted to get started kind of working on this and click, checking the boxes, it just makes peer review a little bit faster. So just know that that is there. And let me go back to our page here. Then the two examples, if you want to look at these example courses, again, I wouldn't say they're exemplary courses, but they are aligned. They tick the boxes, okay? You can click on those and that'll take you to a link. We're a little limited with what we can see and what we can't see, but it's helpful. Okay, thank you. Oh, I have to write your name down, make sure you've got it. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. And then as you're doing revisions, if you're a person who likes to stay super organized, we have a revision tracker. So if you've got a review back, they're just assigning the new set of course reviews this week. So you probably get tapped very soon for a course review. But once you get a course review back, you can click on this link. It'll take you to a little tracking document. And you can just kind of note the areas where you weren't aligned and then note what you've done now to be aligned. That helps us check you off faster at the end that you've completed your review. Okay. And then again, for each element, so for the B's, we'll get down to the B's here. If you have any issues with, say, B1, you can click on any of these links. They'll give you some, if you want a video or you want an example, you can do that, okay? And we kind of give you links like for this entire section. These things kind of apply to the whole B1, 2, and 3, right? And then down here, the second section, B through 6, we kind of have some individual things that we thought might be helpful to you, okay? So, and again, if you don't know for participation, if you don't know how to make rubrics, that's down there as well. All right, so this helps you work at your own pace. That's pretty much it. This worksheet links to so many things. I don't have to give you anything else. I think this covers most of your bases. The other thing is there's great videos for the overall section for B, like the B section. So, I do things one way. CVC may explain it in a different way that makes more sense to you. You can also watch their video as well. So I want to make sure at this point, I just want to check in with each person and answer your individual questions for this section, maybe what you have going on in your course, and want to know, if you're in the alignment or not. So Araceli, do you mind unmuting and we can kind of chat for a second? I'm going to caught her at a bad time. We'll go. How about Mary? Mary, do you have any questions about what we went over so far?
It's all so strange, but
It's also strange. Okay.
with effective, in the course catalog, it says that my classes meet 4 hours, like
Okay.
my Monday, Wednesday class. So I've been giving them synchronously 4 hours a week. And then before one of the sessions, I have what is called office hour, which I encourage everybody to come. And then the other session, I call it an extra help session.
Okay.
And then I'm wondering if that will go into student communication, reaching out, because every
Yes.
time I remind them that there's office hours, and I have trouble with Zoom, so occasionally I get knocked off. So
Sure.
I'll reschedule it for Friday, and then I will let everybody know we're having an extra session because of my trouble. And last weekend we even went to Sunday morning, and
Okay.
it's not required. But
Right.
are those things considered effective communication with students? Like last night I had one student there, and you could tell that he was a little uncomfortable because it put more effort on his part, like, let's
Sure.
work on this. So but do those hours count as communication with students?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing, Mary, because you're doing a synchronous course, so one thing to keep in mind, this rubric was designed for asynchronously delivered courses. And one discussion we're having right now in distance education, you might actually be a very good person to bring in on this, is how do we adopt this for synchronously delivered classes, right? Because you're doing so much work over Zoom with students, we don't expect to see all these elements in Canvas necessarily if they're happening in the Zoom classroom, right?
Okay.
Which is what you're doing. So yours is, I'm really glad you're sharing this example. You are doing an excellent job. And I've been looking at some of your videos now. I've been starting to go through your course, and even in the videos, Mary, you're doing a great job of encouraging students to contact you. And so even just in those videos, I'm seeing that. So
her videos were filmed just with an iPhone
that's fantastic. It was really
by my husband.
With Ben.
Yeah, and really well. And one thing I want to say on the cinematography, I love when he cuts to, the textbook or cuts to a close up of the. It was great. It's and okay, just off topic. I just have to tell you this, Mary. I have never seen. This is so wonderful. I have never seen a math instructor give the book tour. Like, here's the textbook, here's how to read this textbook and make the most of it. You have a video on that. And that is outstanding. Like,
Fantastic. One thing outstanding.
Outstanding. I mean, in terms of, I have to look on the rubric. That would be somewhere section A, but and that's an example for other people, how to read this, how to make the most of this textbook. So that's meaningful to you in this course. I've never seen anybody do anything like that. That was fantastic. So you've got really exemplary elements there. I think you're probably really set on the communication with your students part.
All right. So I won't worry about that too much.
I wouldn't worry. What I have to worry from the DE perspective is, again, adapting this to the synchronous classes. I'll be honest, what we're going to do is with these reviews, we're focusing on the asynchronous classes first.
Okay.
Because we got that down. And now we're going to try to figure out in the next few weeks what this looks like, these standards, how we identify them in synchronous classes.
So now I'm starting on my modules, which for me is a lot of, so when I come to one meeting, so, oh my goodness, I didn't put the objectives there. So I need to get all those. And it feels like I'm writing a textbook. You know, because good textbooks have what topics, what are the units? Those are the topics to be covered. And then of course the objectives, if there's something called adding and subtracting unlike denominators, that's your objective. So I feel like you have to write so much, but I'm trying to make the modules go along with how I would present it asynchronously or synchronously.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Because
I think
I
you're,
put out stuff on emails and announcements that I'm on the right track, I hope.
you are. Yeah, I think
Okay.
you are. And, you know, if you want me to meet with you individually, we can do some work on the
Right.
modules together. Yeah.
Right. I just have to get them done first. And I figured it would take me this month to get them all done. I know where I'm going. Then I
Right.
can go back and fix a page to throw
Right.
all the objectives in. So and then next month when I take the course, then I'm hoping I can sort of fine tune some stuff that
Yes.
I've already done.
I
So
think that's a good plan.
my basic goal is don't try to jump in with everything with the chats and the discussions, because I lose focus of the math I'm trying to teach.
You don't need to do the chat and the discussions when you have the synchronous component.
Okay. Oh, cool. Cool.
Because
cool,
that's really the reason why we have those, is because we're trying to replace what would happen in the classroom with the chats and the discussions.
cool.
Right.
Right. Okay.
We might create for you just one discussion board when students have general questions. You know,
Okay.
that might be something that might be a fine tune for your course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Betsy, I have to go.
Oh.
Am I gonna get a copy of this?
Yes.
Recording.
Let me share. I didn't share the link. I had said I was going to share it and I didn't. Let me just do this real quick.
And then the you were talking about some papers.
This is all I've got. So
Okay.
let me just, it links to many things.
Yes.
So let me just throw this into the chat real quickly and then you'll have that. Sorry, I get so interested in everybody's classes. So there you go. That link will get you this handout and then it links to a million other resources.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Including those classes. Okay, take care. Thanks for dropping in.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And then, so then we have, okay, RSL link. So then Noelle, any other questions from you, Noelle? Are you pretty good on this section, you think, or?
I feel pretty good about this, about section B, probably because there's less in it, but
Yeah.
I make use of a function in grades. So I go into grades, and if it's getting close to a due date or, you know, something like that, or if it's like, say it's within a, you know, I have little discussions and quizzes. I do some quizzes in my 1X class on skills, and I'll message them, you know, because you can click on the top of that row, like quiz 5. I can click on the top and it says message students who, and you know, who turned it in or who haven't turned it in. So I'll do the students who haven't turned it in, and it gives you like missing work. It gives you a subject line for the email, and I often change it. Don't forget quiz 5, you know, and I put a little link, and I always say, if you have questions, please respond to this email. And it spurs those who've forgotten, oh yeah, Wednesdays are quiz days or something, or people who have just sort of fallen off the radar. It's a really, really handy function. I think that under section B is in the grades, message students who turned it in.
Perfect one for this instructor initiated. So B2, using that.
Yeah, and I think possibly where I struggle is number 4, students with students. I haven't, you know, I haven't done Zoom groups or breakouts. I know there is students on an enabled app called Padlet. teachers have had good use of Padlet, and I might
Yeah.
try something like that.
Mhm.
I also think that a Canvas-enabled function called collaborations
Mhm.
might count, but I haven't used that. And the only place where I've really got some students interacting with each other is in the literature class. I've got 46B, which is 1800 to the present. And especially within the announcements where I've had them like, talk about what do you think of Parmesan ice cream? That was literally a thing in the early Jane Austen era. And
So great.
yeah, and I can't wait till we get to the Victorians. Wait till they find out what the Victorians did. But things like I've had a little, and because it's a small class and and some of them know each other, and it's just more prone to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm struggling, I think, with getting the 1A students to have contact with each other.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. They don't have to. We just have to provide opportunities for them to. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to encourage them to check in on the Q&A board, or see if you can answer somebody's questions. Or I don't know if you do extra credit points, but if you can answer if you ask a question or answer somebody's question this week, I'll give you a point, or something. But
yes,
you don't.
I definitely
Yeah.
offer extra credit, and that is a great way to do it, to get them talking about fragments, run-ons, or even reading comprehension, to talk about that extra credit for.
Perfect. But this is opportunities, right? And it's unstructured. So we can't force them to interact. If they're not going to interact, they didn't need it. You know what I mean? So it's okay. It's fine. Yeah. I think as long as you have something open and available to them and you let them know about it, it's up to them if they're going to use it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Everything else is structured except for B4. B4 is like something open,
That's
Padlet would be a cool way to do it. Like, hey, if you want to talk to each other, here's a Padlet. That's a cool way.
Yeah, because I just found this last some lessons on, this is not a surprise to anybody who teaches or works with students, fragments, run-ons, and the use of commas is not well done.
Like in the world, yeah.
Well, in social media and posts and Twitter, you can write whatever, but I mean,
Right.
for professional level writing or, academic writing, you want some clarity. And I know they want to use it correctly and they're confused. And what it is you just need practice. So I think that's, I'm going to formulate that this weekend, some extra credit discussions, and,
It's a great
maybe
idea.
I'm sure there's like a way to make it into a story. Like you play, it's like a game of telephone, if you know what I mean. You add to it, adding to it.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And so everybody, here's a subject, the weather or the air.
Uh-huh.
Oh goodness, the dog next door has gone crazy.
Oh.
You add to it, and you have to have a like a comma in it, or use a dependent clause or something.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, yeah. Just connect it in an appropriate way or something. I like that. Yeah, that'll be fun. Very good idea. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you guys have both have a lot, I know, in your classes that you're doing a lot of these things with. And like I said, this is pretty darn critical to an asynchronous class to make it different from a correspondence class and like a face-to-face class, right? It's really critical. So, and Mary, you're building a lot of these things in already, probably mostly in that synchronous component. And then as DE, as we take a look at this to adapt it for synchronous, we'll keep all that in mind. I may have to tap you again for examples and ideas, so we know we're applying it well to those synchronous classes. But
well, we keep trying.
We keep trying. Yeah.
Is it? I haven't used breakout rooms yet because I'm just not with mine. I'm afraid I won't enter abled room. But are we able to suggest you might want to trade contact info in a breakout room. I actually thought about asking who would feel comfortable in passing out emails to the whole class, because a lot of my stuff, they have 5 days to complete, and
Yeah.
it's open book, open note, open friend, you know.
Right.
Is that
So-
possible?
Yeah, so emails are fine. Emails are not considered, so students' names and emails are not considered protected information, which is, strange, but I guess from a legal standpoint, that's true.
Okay.
Because within Canvas, students can message each other, actually. They could write to each other within that Canvas inbox. Anybody's in that class, they actually could message. So that is fine. I would always make it voluntary though, just because then it's less threatening to students. Students feel like they have control, and if a student opts out, we'd have to be okay with that, right? Like, no, I don't feel like sharing my contact information, even though technically we can easily get it, as classmates, we could easily get that. Yeah, I think it's totally fine. If you feel comfortable, I'd like to encourage you to, I used to do that all the time in my face-to-face classes, turn the person your left, turn the person your right. If they'd like to share their contact information and you miss a day of class, now you've got somebody to talk to, right?
Right.
So yeah, but again, it's voluntary.
So in the inbox, they're actually able to go look at all the students listed and go, oh, Jer, I want to talk to her. And then they can email.
They could message one another, in the
Okay.
class.
All righty. Okay. All right. I hadn't even thought of doing that. Maybe they're already doing that.
We can, let me double check that, Mary, and see if that's changed at all. There was some updates to Canvas. I know that definitely we can. I've been in classes as a student and I can, but let me just make sure that that is still true, because there's always changes. So can students still see one another? I know this is a concern because we actually created special permissions so that in counseling, if counselors can enroll students a certain way so that they can't message one another. So I know this is true. It just still is true that they can message each other, because I'm talking to myself here in circles. Yes, it's still true. I had to think it through.
Can they see it? And also, if they click on people, can't they see?
If you have people enabled in the class, so you can hide. I usually hide people.
Oh, they should hide people. Yeah.
Yeah, but they can also see, like in the discussion board, they see who's in the class, right? They see who's posting.
Well,
but definitely that Canvas inbox, they can see each other. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What is section C and D? What are they called?
Yeah, so C is on assessment. You took that digital assessment class, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
So you should be pretty solid on all of these elements for C. And really in C, we're just talking about, there are many different types of assessments happening in the class. And we can go into the details of that, but it aligns with those objectives you set for the unit. And then you're using rubrics or some kind of guideline, but rubrics are probably the easiest. And then you're providing feedback. Now for Mary, for math, rubrics are not probably what you want to be doing, but that'd be kind of interesting. Actually, it'd be interesting to see, because you have them they're doing computational assessments, right? Like they're always.
There are no paragraph writings.
Correct, right. So you would not be using rubrics, but you would just be clear on what you're going to be assessing, that you want to see all work, or that that kind of stuff.
And so we actually have a rubric in our head. Like I considered a breathing. They breathed on the problem. I gave them at least 20%. They knew nothing, but I gave them something.
Okay.
The problem was 5. I would never take off all 5. I would, if they wrote something.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that might be fair to spell out. I mean, maybe keep the breathe part to yourself. But
I know. But
you know what I mean? Like just like, oh yeah, you'll never go down to 0. But yeah, something like that kind of spelled out for them at the beginning, just so they know, like, you're going to get full points if you do this. You'll get, 3/4 of the points if you do this. If you're awarding partial credit, maybe what that is in your head or what that looks like. would be good to.
I have to share this story. Years ago, I said, please don't leave anything blank. It was in a high school class. Never leave anything blank. You're grading yourself. You have to make me read it, and then I decide. And so it was a geometry class, and this young lady named Gwen said, "Dear Mrs. Young, I don't know how to start this proof, triangle ABC." So she's just making it look like the format. And I wrote -0, and I grade about 8 more pages. And it goes, "What did she write?" And I had to go back through the papers. And I thought, well, you bluffer. And I actually gave her full credit for the
Oh, wow.
even though it was wrong, because she did exactly what I said. Never tell the person you don't know, bluff your way through it. And she did. I had to share that.
It was like an acting. Well, you're also teaching acting, right?
Yes. You know, put a little bit of math, triangle, ABC, congruent, whether I had anything. Yep, that's right. That's right.
Just try
We do that
something.
in English. We, of course, remember, Betsy, we tell them, don't apologize for things. Say, or come at the end, "I'm really sorry. I don't know don't tell,"
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes
Totally.
I've seen a student, like, now that you upload to Canvas and they can make a comment if they feel like it. And they say things like, "I hope you really enjoyed this. I worked hard and I've learned a lot." And you're like, BS, you did. Appreciate it nonetheless. And I think that's great, to set the teacher up. I learned so much, and the teacher feels like, oh, their little ego, and I'm going to give that some extra points. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, that's, with the assessment, just making sure the instructions are clear, we're providing feedback, and that this is the one that gets people, there's opportunities for self-assessment. So this could be questions you provide students, like, check yourself this. So I'm thinking in terms of either English or math, would you know how to, for math, answer this kind of a problem, or could you explain when we would apply this theorem? For English, think about, could you explain the difference between a paraphrase and a summary? Could you, whatever that week's worth of learning was. It could be simple questions. Sometimes people put in when there's, you're reading textbooks and you want to give them 5 questions. So Mary might give them 5 sample problems, but you do this with the textbook. And I would say for you, self-assessment, you have self-assessment opportunities within that textbook. You encourage students to do that. In English, sometimes there's reading quizzes we give that are no points. Sometimes just to check yourself. Sometimes we give them 4 points. So, different things like that. If you pick something once in a while that allows students to check themselves without risk of a bad grade.
Okay.
That's what that is. So C8's the one that trips people up. We don't usually see that in classes right off the bat. So that's what's coming up. D is accessibility. All of these, I'm like going to finish under 2 hours. How I would get D done in 2 hours, don't know, but we're going to try.
Yeah, I'm registered for C next week,
Okay.
and I'm looking forward to it. And I'll have to do D, like I said, in October. And I'm really, I know it's a challenge, but I'm really looking forward to making sure everything clicks.
Yeah,
it's in progress. That's all I know is it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I know I've made some mistakes, and so far no complaints, but I can get better. I'll be better next semester, and on and on.
Yeah, absolutely. For accessibility, I think the biggest thing, keep in mind, if you can make it a Canvas page, make it a Canvas page. So things in English that trip us up are a lot of articles without making them accessible, stuff like that.
And I've learned how to put them in pages. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So that's great. So you may be almost completely.
And sometimes, then I'm sorry, I go comparing myself to my son's teachers, as I'm sure, as you look at Daniela's classes, his math teacher is doing it. His bio teacher is just blindsided by all of this. Who does she have for bio? Does she have Boysanus or?
No, Jolanda.
Oh, okay.
Blackwell.
Okay, because at Harper, there's a bio teacher who actually went to WCC.
Oh,
Paula
really?
and Eves, there's two of them, husband and wife. Well, I don't think he did, but yeah. And so
Okay.
they have a son named Christoph
Okay.
who I think goes there. And he's Daniela's age. He's in 9th. And we
Oh,
knew-
okay. Yeah, no, she has Blacklaw, and actually, I connected her to Kay Tamsey for help with ideas for bio. So,
Well, Mary and I have a friend who teaches for Grant High School, and she's a 9th grade biology teacher in Woodland. So we're just going to set labs up in her front yard.
that's
Right,
great.
Mary? We're just going to do all Noah's tutoring in Jeanette's front yard. If Noah needs help with math, there's Mary. If he needs help with bio, there's our friend Jeanette who lives off a road.
His own personal school, right? I like it.
Betsy,
Yeah.
if they take a test
Mhm.
and so you're grading it, but I'm not marking on their test. I'm keeping the ones that I get. So if I submit them an answer key afterwards, is that
Mhm.
considered feedback to an assessment they had?
So it's a type of feedback. It's there's like 4 types of feedback. I'm trying to think what that one's called. But yeah, it's a type of feedback. What I would say every once in a while in Canvas, have you used SpeedGrader at all for grading?
No, that's down the
There's a-
road for me.
Yeah, sure. So there's a place in there that you can put comments in. And
Okay.
so what I would say is on an exam, so it's like let's say a low points thing that you're grading. I would just give them maybe the answer key and give an announcement to the class of general feedback. Here are the trends I saw, right? Like,
Okay.
you're doing really well with this, but a lot of you still need work with whatever. Here's another resource, that kind of thing.
Okay.
With big exams, you may want to give students an overview in the comment section of SpeedGrader. So you give them the answer key, and then for a particular student, especially students who need your help, say, look, you seem to have gotten this part, but I really, we need you to concentrate on this. I've got office hours. We're going to go over this concept. Please meet with me then. If you do, you give an extra credit point or whatever your system is, that's what I would do in those comments, is give them a synopsis.
Okay.
It could just be a few sentences, but quality feedback in terms of their overall learning. The other thing you could do, another technique, you don't have to do that every time. You might do it for the first exam. And the second one, you might set it up as a reflection. And so they have to write to you and say, okay, I looked at my exam. I looked at the feedback you gave me, the answer key, and here's what I think I saw, right? So the first time you're modeling for them, here's how you assess yourself as a learner.
Okay.
And the second time you're asking them to say, where were your biggest gaps? What concepts do you need to go over again?
Okay.
That kind of thing. So then we were teaching them how to, so that's also a type of feedback.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm.
All right. That works for me.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think if you guys are good, and Mary, maybe you and I can set up a time where we could work a little bit more one-on-one, because I know we
Okay.
had some questions about assignments or something we need to work through.
Thank you so much. This has been extremely helpful, and
Thank
I
you
look forward to
both.
these. Hey, Mary,
Yeah, thank you both.
am I going to see you tonight, Mary?
Maybe.
Okay. We have some friends we Zoom with on weekends, and they play trivia games and stuff. So
Oh, that's a great idea.
some theater people.
Oh, very fun. Very good.
Okay. Thank you very
Well,
much.
have fun. Thank you
Bye,
both.
Noelle.
Good to see you.
So Betsy, when would you like to try to set up a time?
Okay.
Do you want me to go to school, or do you want